Hey guys, Matt Wroblewski here, just checking in quickly to give a Phantom Knights deck profile. I was fortunate enough to play in a Core TCG regional event today and made it into the top 4 and ultimately placed 3rd in my final match, beating Swordsoul. Definitely a good fight, had tons of fun. The judges really run a tight ship over there, and they're really, really helpful. So I would definitely recommend playing in Core TCG tournaments. Those guys are great. So I won't belate the subject any longer. I'll just go ahead and get into the deck. We'll start with the cards that aren't like super consistent. Like, I think that's a big bone of contention for this deck, is that there's consistency issues. Like, if you didn't have the consistency issues that you often find with this deck, and you always ran good, or you are more likely to run good than you generally are because of all the bricks that you play, this would be a much stronger contender, even in the face of Protos, which is the other big issue with this deck currently. Consistency, and then Protos. So these are the going second cards. I felt really, really confident with these cards. I've been trying to find the right going second cards for some time now. I mean, everybody originally was on triple Droplet, and then triple Dark Ruler No More, and that's really great. The issue is Protos, and the issue is just people being able to create such powerful boards, and then also have like Oath from Tri-Brigade that makes it, you know, just sort of pointless that you have Dark Ruler No More, and you know, Protos out of Swordsoul. So you really need cards that can interact with your opponent on their turn, or if you don't, you need to have a really damn good reason for playing them. And in the case of Forbidden Droplet, you have a really good damn reason for playing it because it's such a powerful card. It synergizes so well with your deck. It allows you to play around so many boards because you can go into the damage step and just negate. Even if you're going first, that can be really powerful if they're trying to attack over your stuff, like Appaloosa. You can set this, pass, and they try to make a play to out Appaloosa, so you can't negate all of their plays, and then you just Forbidden Droplet them, and they resign. So Forbidden Droplet's really, really powerful. Definitely felt confident playing 3 of those in the deck. Another card that is interesting, has been seeing more play in this deck recently, is Infinite Impermanence. It's just a really, really powerful card. It dodges Called by the Grave, and it just does a ton of work. I love this card, you know, in all of my matchups. There literally wasn't any matches that this card was dead. It was so, so good. Hitting Moye, you know, hitting, you know, their Lyralust starters. It's just so, so powerful. So I really, really liked Infinite Impermanence, even though it does conflict with Shade Brigadine. I think it's totally worth playing. Definitely a very good card. And then I think in combination with Infinite Impermanence is Nibiru. You know, this combo is incredibly strong. If you can allow your Swordsoul player to go and amass this massive board where their only real Omni-Negate is Baron, then you're able to go Nibiru and then chain Infinite Impermanence and blow up their entire board. And then Nib is just such a powerful high-impact card in and of itself. I mean, that's what I really want to go for with my hand traps, is like super high-impact cards that it's challenging for my opponent to interact with. And I think these perfectly fit the build. The reason I'm not playing a 3rd Nibiru is, well, it's a once per turn effect, and you never really like seeing 2 of them. So that's like kind of like a side point, but also it gives me a little more space in my side deck, so I like that. So I felt really, really confident with these going second cards. I think one of the biggest conversation points when doing a deck profile on Phantom Knights is the going second cards. And so I felt really confident with those. And I'll go ahead and keep these here at the bottom for a moment, because I'm just going to show you all the bricks. And this is why people, I believe, shy away from this deck, and perhaps rightfully so. You know, I mean, I know everybody likes to top a regional or top this and that and then talk about how great their build was, but I mean, I do feel like this is one of the best variants of this deck, and I feel really confident about it. And I felt, most importantly, I felt very confident playing this. But admittedly, it's not the most consistent build in the world, because you're playing 9 going second cards, and then you're playing all of these cards here that don't allow you to get to Cherubini. So it's kind of god-awful. There's so many combinations of cards and hands that you can open up here that just don't allow you to get into Cherubini. And it's like, you know, opening up a single card, a single level 3 that doesn't allow you to plus, and isn't a one-card starter, even with any combination of 4 of these, is also a non-playable hand. But I was very fortunate this weekend. I told my friends, they probably thought I was full of shit because I always say stuff like this, that if I just ran good, I knew I would top this regional. And I was very fortunate that I didn't brick a single time. Very, very fortunate because a lot of my matches were grindy. Most of them I had to play 3 games for each match. And so I was very fortunate that I didn't brick. I just felt really, really confident with this deck. I mean, one thing that you need to do when you're siding with this deck, because you simply are playing too many bricks, is you need to be siding out Graph and Seer for some of your going second cards. Yeah, you lose a lot of pluses, but it's totally 100% worth it because these cards aren't starters. You know, they're just extenders, and they just allow you to plus. So you really need to cut these. But, you know, I felt really good playing the Fusion Destiny package. I literally right before this was testing with my friend to play the Isolde package because a lot of Phantom Knight players have been seeing success with that version of the deck, though I will say that it's not just that version of the deck, it's also they still play Fusion Destiny in combination with playing a higher deck count, like 50 or 60 cards, enabling them to add more extenders and make it to where they can still get to Cherubini a reasonable amount of the time because, you know, a lot of the times when you talk about getting 50 or 60 cards, you don't want to have that many cards. The main reason being that the quality of your starters gets diminished. But when it comes to a deck like PK or Phantom Knight, where you're trying to get into Cherubini and that's going to be the starting play almost always, it's really just a matter of getting to level 3. So you really can't diminish that. You can argue that you're diminishing the probability of getting to cards like you know, Torn Scales or something, or Tour Guide, but, you know, that's kind of negligible. So I really was testing that, and I was trying it, and I just wasn't liking it. I felt like it's just too many cards for me, and it's also, I was trying a version that was just 40 cards with Isolde and no Fusion Destiny, and I really, really felt like Fusion Destiny was 100% needed. I mean, you need that Phoenix Enforcer to be on the board when you pass turn, and you know you go to your opponent's main phase and they have priority and they can they can Mystic Mine you there. You definitely need a Phoenix Enforcer there, and it's just such a powerful card. It puts so much pressure on people that are playing back row decks, and I feel like back row decks are incredibly popular right now, especially at regionals, because they're highly affordable and they're highly competitive, like Eldritch, for instance, and that combination is going to make decks like that highly attractive for many players. So I really anticipated seeing a lot of decks like that, even though I didn't in this tournament, which is very fortunate for a deck like this, since we don't interact with back row much besides just popping the shit out of it. But, you know, that is a relevant way of dealing with it, and that's why we have a decent matchup versus decks like Eldritch. But still, you need the Enforcer in order for that to be the case. So yeah, I just kind of want to showcase this deck plays a lot of bricks, and I personally wouldn't take this deck to like a really, really large tournament. I only played 5 rounds, and I was very fortunate not to brick at all. And I think if you played a build like this at your locals or a smaller regional, you could feel confident that you're not going to brick too often, and as long as you're making tight plays, that you should get the better of it more often than not. So yeah, I was really happy to be playing Fusion Destiny, you know, Dasher, Celestial, very good. Of course, we're playing these. Only running 2 Fogblade. I have seen a trend of people only playing 2 Fogblade, and initially I was like, that's absolutely atrocious. Like, that's one of the best cards in the deck, and you easily can go through all of these cards in your first combo turn, super easily. But I've come to realize that, you know, when I go second and third, I often side out a 3rd Fogblade anyway, and I really don't have space for an additional Fogblade, an additional card that doesn't get you into Cherubini. And yeah, I've been playing 2 recently, really haven't missed it. Yeah, sure, you can always find yourself always in a position where you can search another Fogblade. It's just you really don't need it. It's not bad to play at all, but as long as we're playing so many other packages and lots of going second cards, I would definitely not be running the 3rd. You know, if you weren't playing all these packages and everything, and you were looking to play more of a grind game, then certainly the 3rd Fogblade seems sensible to me. But I didn't miss it at all. today and felt, really happy to be seeing cards like this more frequently. So that's some of the brickier stuff that's kind of necessary and allows you to play through your opponent's boards and is really, really helpful. And then on to the extenders of the deck. We have Stained Greaves. I have him on the bottom here because he's just the worst extender. Well, he's a good extender. He's an absolutely miserable starter. The worst starter in the deck. He's in a class of his own where he doesn't special himself, at least in your original initial play, and he also doesn't plus, and he's not a one-card starter. So he's just literally the worst starter in the deck. But he is technically a level 3, so you can use him in combination with a card like Boots to get to your Cherubini. So it's good, but he is a very good extender. He allows you to go into plays that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. And so for that reason, I do play him, and I think he's a reasonable inclusion. I think if you didn't play him, you would find yourself really wanting that additional extender. Because a lot of times you use Boots, and early on the beginning of your play, you normal summon Scale, special Boots, Link, and then you already use its special effect, but you need something to search off of Cloak later on in your play, and so Stained Greaves is really, really good for that. Junk Forward's good. I really like it in conjunction with Rhoda. It's just a card that you don't have to commit your normal summon, and it just gives you an additional extender that's like super free and can allow you to push through stuff and go into Break Sword and then attack a defense position monster and then go into Zeus and try to put pressure, or this with another card, another extender, in order to go into Cherubini and then use Cherubini and its protection effects to start to play through stuff. So, having that free special summon is really good. And I really liked having Junk Forward. Then Psychic Wielder, Psychic Tracker, they're good. Yep, they're not warriors, so that's helpful against There Can Only Be One, which is a highly popular card right now. For that reason, I'm playing Terror Top. Plays around There Can Only Be One. Really, really helpful. Definitely not going to be playing Takatom board with it. It's just a brick. You don't need any more inconsistency with this deck. But this card's really, really good. I mean, it has come up before. It didn't come up today, but it certainly has come up where I special summoned this against Barrier Statue and then attacked over it and was able to play and beat a player because of that. So it's definitely really, really good. And again, it plays around There Can Only Be One. So it's, I think, a worthwhile extender because this, you can special it, then you can normal summon a monster, any other level 3, and you can go into Leviair and then attack a defense position monster and go into Zeus. It's good. There's lots of applications for it. It's pretty good. To Itelli. Itelli's great. I really, really like this card, even though, IO is a card, but it's still really, really good because you can use it to check for IO, play this, and then if they activate IO, then you can chain one of back row removal, or if you need to answer their monsters, you can chain Forbidden Droplet or something. It's good for checking for IO. It's also really good in conjunction with Droplet. Everybody knows that one. It's also really good, less known, is using this in combination with Cherubini. If you have this in hand, you can save it, go for a Cherubini play, and if your opponent tries to pop Cherubini somehow, usually if you're going second and they have an established board, and they try to pop it, then you can chain Itelli, and of course, as spells and traps as the chain's being resolved, they remain on board until the whole chain is resolved. So when your opponent goes to resolve their effect to pop your dude, Itelli's still there, so you just send it to grave and play around it. It's really, really helpful. I really like it for that reason. So these are all good extenders. These ones right here all help to play around There Can Only Be One. So all really good stuff. They're just singular extenders that special themselves. So really helpful. Now in a new class of cards, we're talking about cards that are starters, not single card starters, but starters that allow you to plus. So Jackalope and Tsuchinoko. Of course, Tsuchinoko is a little bit better than Jackalope because if you hit Jackalope, you need a target in deck. But yeah, both of them are really, really good. I think playing both, it's just no-brainer. It helps you play around There Can Only Be One, and it just allows you to plus and push through a lot of challenging boards that you otherwise wouldn't have the gas to push through. So those are good. And then you know, more starters that allow you to plus. All of these guys, I mean, Boots is the best one because it's in a class of starter that can special itself and it pluses, so it's like the best starter in this deck that's not in the class of one card starter. Really, really good. And then, you know, these are great. Ragged Gloves, it's your safety net. You send that early so you can get whatever you need, but if they go ahead and blow up your board with Nibiru, which they always do, you can banish this to go get, you know, like Wing, banish it, and then get Rusty and continue your play. So yeah, all standard stuff, all really, really good cards. Not much to talk about there. And then of course we play the other ones. You know, this is best card in the deck, this is the next best card in the deck, and this card's really good as well. All nuts. Really not too much to talk about. I think if you're not playing Tour Guide, you're wrong. I'm sorry, you know, I hate to be inflammatory, but that's absolutely true. I mean, if you just calculate the probabilities of being able to open up a hand that goes into Cherubini with this deck, they go way, way up when you include one-card starters. And having a 3 of that's a one-card starter is huge. And a lot of people don't like interrupting this. And if they do interrupt it, you usually feel pretty good because you're playing quite a few extenders. A lot of the times you can just continue your play anyway. Or you have another option like Scales or something that you don't have to go into this right away, and this can be a follow-up. So this is just really, really good. I don't play Kagamucha because Kagamucha just plays into There Can Only Be One, and I feel like Ash isn't terribly popular, and all the reasons I said before, you don't mind if they hit this, so it's okay. So that's what I was playing in my main deck. Now moving on to, I guess I'll go ahead and go into the extra deck. It's pretty standard, I think. You can see I'm not playing Scythe in the main deck. I was playing Scythe in the main deck for a while, but I came to really despise that configuration because you just blind Scythe and then you're against Eldritch and you just put yourself in a really bad spot. So with this deck, I'll show you my extra deck, what the configuration I was going for. But as you can see, I still play Scythe on the side. So here's our Enforcer package, pretty standard. Nightmare Phoenix, you know, if you're really making a good effort to play around There Can Only Be One, you also need to be including this in your extra deck. And I really, really like Nightmare Phoenix. Just a really, really good card. Unicorn's solid. It in unison with Access Code Talker, just really, really strong plays. Gives you lots and lots of outs. Allows you to link up and just completely shred your opponent's board. Really, really solid cards. Access Code Talker puts on so much pressure against back row decks. It's such a good card. I've seen people early on in this deck's lifespan of people deciding what should be included, cutting this, and that's just absolutely bonkers. Appaloosa, of course, this is a really key part of the boards that I make going first in game one. And then IP. So IP is really, really important too. I usually go into IP. So the boards that I usually make is something like Rusty with Anaconda, IP, and then a Breaksword Engrave. And that's really nice because it allows you the flexibility to go into Appaloosa if you want, or you can go into Access Code Talker if you find that you're against a back row deck, because IP into Access Code Talker is like lights out versus so many back row decks, because they literally have to have like, a 3-card out. They have to have, Ice Dragon's Prison or whatever in order to out this card. Otherwise, they just can't interact with it, and it's going to put on so much pressure, and it's just going to OTK them. So yeah, I really like that combination. I wanted that flexibility in game one, and I was really, really glad that I had it. So yeah, this is my all of my Link monsters, and that's why I play IP. And then these are all very standard. Double Breaksword, so you want Double Breaksword because we are siding into Scythe later on. Leviair is just insane. Time Thief Redoer, this card's cracked. I absolutely love this card. It's just amazing. The fact that it cycles and replenishes its own materials is just so broken. Like, I remember when this card first came out and people were so hyped about it. That's still how I feel to this day. I mean, it's insane versus back row decks getting traps, and then it's also just really good if I really like playing this early in a combo if you think your opponent might have Nibiru, because this combined with like gloves, that's a 3,400 attacker. That's almost half your opponent's LP, and it puts on so much pressure. And then you can just put like, you know, 1 or 2 monsters on board, and then have a Fogblade Engrave with like a break sword to target. That represents lethal and attempt to enter a battle, and then when they nib you, then you can banish it. So I really, really like Time Thief for Redeemer. It's such a good card. And please, please, please remember that when you activate this card, you don't detach any of the materials. You know, there's no semicolon in this effect. So when you activate it, that's it. And then your opponent can respond. They don't have the added benefit of knowing which cards you're going to detach. So really, really good. Really enjoyed that configuration. And last but not least, my side deck, I played, so for my going first cards, I played Scythe, Dagda, Imperial Order, and Judgement. These seemed like the best cards. Like, you want to play Solemn Judgment because you need some protection against Evenly. This protected me seriously against, particularly exactly Evenly today. I would have got completely blown out, but Solemn Judgment is so helpful. And I really like it because this card has coverage over back row decks as well as the best decks in the meta. And, you know, whereas cards like Anti-Spell aren't as good. And then, of course, IO. And then I was at one point considering cutting this, but it's so powerful. It won me my match versus, it won me the second game versus Swordsoul. It's just such a powerful lock. I came to realize that it requires such little resources, literally 3 monsters, and you lock your opponent from playing. You know, I know all you guys realize that, but when you sit here with this deck for long enough and think about your cards and what you can cut and what you could potentially, the powerful cards that you could add to your side deck, you get crazy ideas like cutting this. But actually, it's just insane. And so I think definitely having this in the side felt really, really good. And it's super, super relevant because, you know, you can potentially always see it. You just have to open up 2 starters and you're always going to see it, or even just, you know, a 1-card starter, and you're always going to see that, which makes that infinitely more powerful. So I felt really, really good with these cards. Absolutely clutch. I didn't see IO all tournament long, but I mean, it's, you know, I see it all the time playing in DB and everything, and it's always such a good card. And then, yeah, Solemn Judgment, just being able to hit anything, sucks in time, but really, really good otherwise. And then I played a lot of back row removal. I wanted to have some overlap with other Scythe Lock decks. So I played Cosmic Cyclone, even though I'm not a huge fan of it, because everybody sides Lancia. Same reason we don't play Evenly Match. The card's crazy, but everybody's siding in and intrinsic out to it. I'm not going to play Evenly Match. And Cosmic Cyclone's the same deal, except for Cosmic Cyclone, it's a little easier to play around it. Like, you can kind of just wait and then, like, hit one of your opponent's Eldritch traps later or something, and that can be pretty impactful for allowing them, disabling them from being able to loop their Eldritch stuff. So yeah, so I felt like the 2-2 split was good. I really like Twin Twisters, particularly against back row decks, and has so much good synergy with this deck. It's just good. And Red Reboot's a god card, and Harpy's Feather Duster is Harpy's Feather Duster. So these were all really good. Definitely wanted a good package of back row removal because, as I said before, I think back row decks are, you know, a lot of them are competitive and they're cheap, and so you should at regionals expect to see them. Last but not least, the 2 remaining Drolls. So I had, like I said earlier, one in the main deck in order to give me a little more space. I expected to see lots of Bird Up decks. I did see a Bird Up deck, and Droll put in a ton of work there. It's just such a good card. And it's, you know, Lyrlux is such an affordable deck that you definitely want to be well prepared for it. Lancia was the same thing. Like, I really wanted a 3rd Lancia for Swordsoul. It's also good against Bird Up, obviously, but particularly for Swordsoul, because this stops them from being able to go into Protos. So that's why I played this. I really wanted 3, but I'm kind of fine with 2. It's like, the issue is the reason this deck is in such a bad place is because, well, it plays a lot of bricks, but it also just struggles against Protos. Like, I lost game 1 hard against Protos, and it felt really, really bad. And Lancia is, you know, again, it just stops them from getting Protos. The issue is that then you have to deal with the rest of their board. You still have to out the rest of their board. It doesn't really stop their plays to, you know, really in a very high extent. Like, they still are able to set like Chi Chow and Baron, and it's still really oppressive, you know, and Blackout, and it's really oppressive. So I think 2 is fine because, you know, this card is kind of like a concession that, you know, I need to not die instantly to Protos, but then I recognize that I need even more cards to then try to out my opponent's board, and it's really an uphill battle. Which is why proactive cards like Imperm are so important, because you need to stop Moye from going like +4, right? But yeah, Lancia is good. It's definitely good, and it's good in conjunction with Dagda because you can get a second set off of it. You get Scythe turn 1, and then when you go to do the beginning of your Scythe Lock in turn 2, you can set this as well off of Dagda, which is really nice. So yeah, that's the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a good rest of your day.